Do we buy first or do we sell first?
Okay, this is always a tricky question.
So for many of our first-time HDB owners out there, when the MOP arrive, you must be wondering, should I keep my property or should I upgrade it? Welcome to this second episode of 5 First. It's your host Matthew, and let's go meet our guest. Today we have a very special guest. He has helped many families out there upgrade their HDB properties. So Eric, could you introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, my name is Eric. I'm in the real estate business for the last 11 or 12 years. So I have successfully helped all clients, be it a resale, HDB or private property, to successfully upgrade to either a new launch or a resale private property depending on their requirements.
So when would you say someone is ready to upgrade their HDB property?
Example, if a young couple today, so most of them they actually get a BTO direct from HDB.
Correct. Right.
After which most of them will have like expansion of their family with a kids, probably one or two kids. It reaches a different kind of milestones for them. They most of the time need to shift closer to a school to actually get easier enrollment to that particular school. If there's a need to be within a kilometer. Anybody can actually upgrade, but again depending on the requirement that is needed for individual family. Secondly is also the depreciating value of HDB. In fact, the older HDB doesn't hold too much of the value very strongly. So
Makes sense.
unless most of the people want to have space, then they will definitely opt for all that. But again, when it comes to selling all that, you may not be able to make that kind of profit. But then again, that doesn't stop most of people from actually upgrading as well. If you are the first owner today after getting a BTO, so 5 years down the road later, so most of them will actually be in the profit margin of probably a good 100 to 120,000 or some even more. If you were to actually change depending on your lifestyle that you actually want, it's actually easier to move things forward for you and your family.
Can someone actually retain their HDB while upgrading?
As long as you actually fulfill the 5 years MOP period, which is a minimum occupation period, you can actually keep the HDB. To purchase the next property, definitely has to be a private property. But then again, if you were to actually hold it in a manner of most of them is actually a joint tenancy for the HDB. So if you were to buy another property, a private, you definitely need to pay an additional buyer stamp duty, which is 12% for Singaporean. Unless you did a so-called decoupling before 2017, the 1st of April, then yes, you can actually purchase under your spouse name for the next property while keeping that HDB. And also, probably I just want to highlight, I think majority of people actually doesn't know this. If let's say during the application of either your BTO or your resale, if let's say example you were to put one of your spouse name inside this particular HDB, the other spouse will be under essential occupier, which doesn't uses the CPF, everything, all that. Then 5 years down the road later, after it reaches its MOP, then you can actually hold on to the HDB and your spouse is actually free to buy another private property without incurring the 12% additional buyer stamp duty.
What are the pros and cons between upgrading to a resale condo and a new launch condo?
I mean, there's no perfect house, a home is for you to create, out of that house. All of us, human being, like what?
New stuff.
We all like new stuff, to begin with. So for a new one at the same price, or let's say a budget of about 1.5 million today, if you were to choose anything of the older kind of a condo, you will definitely get a much more bigger space, probably by a quarter more space as compared to a new one that is currently building. Most of the time, plan changes along the way.
Correct.
5, 8, 10 years, you will definitely need to shift again, because when your kids are actually growing up, maybe some of them get married, all that. Then you definitely need to sell. But when it comes to selling, then of course we will need to do a comparison of like the newer 99 versus the older 99. The next generation of purchaser, which one will they prefer? The beauty about buying a new one will be majority of the items like the flooring, aircon, or some of the white goods like the fridge, washing machine, all that will be actually provided by the developer. So over there's actually a kind of a savings in terms of you don't need to spend too much on the renovation. But if you were to buy a resale, resale is something that, of course, you definitely need to redo the whole entire place to come up with cash for renovation, probably a good 80 to more than 100,000 of that. What we actually do is we always give them an option. Option A will be, of course, to go with what your guys want. and then is to actually change to upgrade to a bigger condo, bigger space. Of course, we always give them an option B, which is to introduce to them, let them understand the market of the new launch. So at least it gives them a comparison. The pros and cons is you really have to see what is the needs and the requirement. If you are okay with going with a smaller space to actually for your family, then most of the time we will strongly advise you to go with the new one.
Okay, so from your experiences, right? What is the typical timeline when it comes to upgrading your property?
From marketing of your HDB in the market, let's say example 3 months, to a completion of the transaction of the property of the HDB. So after which, if let's say you were to buy a resale property, you definitely need to time in between a good 3 weeks to a month, because after the sales of your HDB property, there will be a 2 weeks in between for the CPF to be refunded into your CPF OA before the law firm that's representing you for the purchase of the private property to actually retrieve out to complete the purchase. So all in all, in total, if you were to time it, basically the sales and buying a procedure wise will take about probably a good 4 to 5 months.
So in terms of the loan, right, does age play a factor?
Age definitely plays a factor. So back then when I first bought my property, I was always counting based on this total debt servicing ratio, TDSR, of a 60% of the income. Based on the age back then, I can always calculate based on the 30 years loan. But now cannot. Now I have to count based on a lower tenure. Okay?
Understood.
So mainly the message to actually send across to most homeowners or even those who are actually thinking of doing an upgrade as early as possible, because the moment you keep on thinking about when to upgrade, that is also one key thing. Your loan itself may be a factor. If let's say example you were to upgrade in the age 40 today, in fact the loan today you are actually able to get from the bank is only 25 years, because they based on your retirement age of 65 years.
Alright, so we're actually now moving on to our bonus section. So we have a few questions that we would like to ask Eric that perhaps you can actually get value from. Okay, so for the first question, do we buy first or do we sell first?
Okay, this is always a tricky question. Okay, most of the time we will actually advise owners to sell first and buy later. Most of the home seeker, which I understand from when they actually come and see like my listing units, all that, when we ask them, have your house actually been sold in the market? Then they say, no, not yet. Not even in the market for sale. So next question is, do you actually have a down payment of 55% in cash or CPF? Apart from that, you still need to pay your regular stamp duty of 4%. On top of that, additional buyer's stamp duty of another 12%. That probably works out to be a very huge sum. Most of them will have that same answer. No, I don't have. So because my funds are all stuck in the
Previous property,
the current property, which I'm actually holding. So what we usually do right now is, yes, they can actually buy first. Okay, instead of the normal private property option period of just 14 days for the purchaser to actually exercise, I actually help most of my owners to collect a higher deposit, because it's all opportunity cost,
Correct.
And time is opportunity, right? Okay.
Correct.
We actually delay the whole option period to, one of the case was actually 3 months.
Wow,
the other
3 months.
case was actually 5 months. So why 3 months, 4 months, or even 5 months? So it really depending on the seller and buyer, what's the agreement, and of course how much is the deposit being paid. All these different timing is also to give sufficient time for the purchaser who placed the deposit for this property to have enough time to offload their current property.
Makes sense.
So they don't need to actually pay the ABSD first, or even come up with a higher down payment of 55% or even more. Meanwhile, you still have ample time without getting any stress or headache of like, how soon can I get my property sell?
Right, so actually this brings me to my next question. What should one prepare for before going house hunting?
Most of the people who came to see houses, right, 50% of them actually done up their so-called in-principle approval from the bank, or even if you are buying a HDB, if you are intending to get a HDB loan, that is what we term as a HLE, home loan eligibility. The other 50%, they don't know anything. So basically they thought, I come and see the house, I like it, I make an offer, then I go and do my loan. Yes, if you are actually taking a bank loan. But if you are today going to buy a HDB and using a HDB loan, then you actually need to have that HLE first before you can actually place the deposit. So most of them are actually unaware of this step. So when they actually saw the unit that they like, and after which if they were to just after that apply the HLE, then their unit is actually gone.
There it is, guys. Hope you have learned a thing or two from this episode of 5 First. Thank you once again, Eric, for sharing your knowledge.
My pleasure.
For any inquiries when it comes to upgrading your property, Eric is here. We will link all his social media handles down in the description box below. So hope to see you in the next episode of 5 First.
Bye.